Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something a little different. The kind of story that starts with flickering candlelight and ends with a door that should never have opened. You ever do something so stupid, you feel your future self glaring back at you in real time? That was me. A rainy night, a half-rotted chapel, and a ritual none of us believed in. All the perfect ingredients for the kind of memory that refuses to die quietly. You probably won't make it out of this one either. But hey, that's kind of the point. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It started with rain, because of course it did. The kind that comes sideways, riding the wind like it has somewhere to be. My hoodie soaked through before we even made it halfway up the hill, the hem clinging cold to my back. Eddie and Sam were laughing the way you laugh when you're trying not to admit you're scared. I was quiet, mostly because my boots had water in them, and I was pretty sure the shortcut we took was just an animal trail, disguised as a footpath. We'd been hearing about the ritual all week, whispered from booth to booth at the diner, dead between mouthfuls of curly fries after school. You know the kind. Light the candles, chant the words, don't break the circle. High school nonsense, just edgy enough to make it worth doing, and just vague enough that no one ever seemed to finish the story. The chapel itself wasn't really a chapel anymore, just a skeleton of one. The front doors were missing, the roof mostly collapsed, but the bell tower still stood like it was watching us approach. It didn't ring anymore, hadn't in decades, but I remember glancing up and feeling like maybe it didn't need to, maybe it was already echoing in some other way. We ducked inside, shielding our phones from the drizzle. Everything smelled like damp wood and old ash. Sam dropped his backpack with a slap that kicked dust into the air. Got the goods, he said, unzipping it and pulling out a half-used candle, 3 red lighters, and a folded page that looked like it had been printed at the library. Wait, Eddie said, squinting at it. This is it? That font looks like a Halloween decoration. Exactly, Sam grinned. We read the words, sit tight and pretend we didn't pee our pants when the wind blows funny. He wasn't wrong. It all felt like cosplay for urban legends. But there was something about that chapel that made me hesitate. Not fear, not yet. More like awareness. Like walking into a room where someone's just been arguing, and the walls are still humming with it. We lit 5 candles, set them in a circle of broken pew wood, sat cross-legged like we were about to summon Dungeons and Dragons characters. The flame cast shadows that moved like they had their own timing, and even Eddie, the born skeptic, stopped cracking jokes. Sam read the chant aloud, a string of syllables that didn't quite sound like any language I'd ever heard, but not made up either. Each word felt heavy, like it had been waiting to be said again. We waited, and nothing happened. At first, then one of the candles flickered sideways, not out, just sideways, like a breath passed over it. Only there was no wind, probably a draft, I muttered, though the air was thick and still. Eddie reached for his phone flashlight, and that's when the temperature dropped, not gradually, just suddenly, like someone flipped a switch. My breath puffed visibly in front of me, and I noticed the sound of the rain outside had gone faint, like we were underwater. Sam laughed, high and nervous. Okay, creepy enough. Can we blow them out now? But the words came too late. All 5 candles flared at once, a single tongue of flame rising and then splitting again, and then they died, just gone. Silence, not even our breathing dared to echo. And then softly, unmistakably, something whispered, just a single word right behind me, so close I felt the vibration tickle my neck. I spun, but there was nothing, just Eddie looking at me, eyebrows raised. You heard that too, right? He asked. Sam was already scooping up his stuff. Yup, that's enough satanic summer camp for me. We left in a hurry, not running. We weren't ready to admit we were scared, but fast enough that I twisted my ankle on the way down, and didn't even stop to curse. The rain hadn't let up, but the wind had. It followed us instead. That night I couldn't sleep, not because of what happened, or didn't happen, at the chapel, but because something smelled like candle wax in my room. I didn't light anything. I checked the drawers, the closet, even sniffed my clothes, thinking maybe I'd brought the smell home with me. But that wasn't it. It smelled fresh, like it had just been burned, and it was strongest by the window, which I definitely locked before I left. I told myself it was just leftover scent stuck in my hoodie, that the cold was a freak weather drop, that maybe Sam had whispered something as a prank and timed it perfectly. All the things you tell yourself before sleep, all the things I wanted to believe. I fell asleep eventually, but just before I did, in that half-dream moment, where your thoughts go weird and time softens, I swear I heard that whisper again, only this time it came from inside my pillow, and it said my name. The next morning tasted wrong. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean literally. My cereal had this metallic tang, like I'd stirred it with a rusted spoon. I tossed the bowl halfway through, thinking maybe the milk had turned, but it smelled fine. Even the water from the faucet had a weird aftertaste, like old coins in salt water. I brushed my teeth twice. Didn't help. The taste was in me, not what I ate. I chalked it up to nerves. After all, we'd just done a creepy ritual in a falling down church. Maybe the power of suggestion was strong enough to mess with my senses. Eddie texted a meme around noon. A photoshopped goat in a suit with the caption, "Thanks for inviting me to your circle, bros. Best night out in centuries." Sam replied with a gif of someone pouring salt around their bed. We were all laughing, still playing it off, pretending the whisper hadn't happened, but it had, and it wasn't done. That night, I dreamed in candlelight, not warm and golden like normal. This was pale and shivering, like moonlight passed through smoke. Pi was standing in the chapel again, only it was full now, not with people, with shadows, stretched, tall and listening. The candle flames leaned toward me, like they were breathing me in. I tried to move, but my body didn't respond. It was like I was watching from inside my own skin. Turn. A sound, a sharp scrape behind me, something heavy dragging across stone. I wanted to turn, to see what it was, but I couldn't. I could feel it moving closer though, its weight, its intent. When I woke up, my nose was bleeding, just a slow, steady drip. No pain, just red on my pillow. And that same smell, wax and smoke, and something bitter underneath. Break. I didn't tell anyone, not at first. What would I even say? Hey guys, remember that fake ritual we did? Pretty sure it left something in my bedroom. Instead I tried to go about my day, like normal, school, lunch, to pretending I didn't notice how my reflection lagged by half a second in the hallway mirror. That night, I stayed up late. Didn't mean to. I just couldn't seem to relax. My skin felt too tight, my room too quiet. I kept hearing little things, too not loud enough to call sounds, more like presences, shifts in pressure, a faint tapping from inside the wall. Around 2 a.m., I heard the humming, faint, low, too not from outside, but from under my bed. Not musical either, more like vibration, too like a speaker left on, with no input. I leaned down slowly, half expecting to see some old tech I'd forgotten I owned, but there was nothing under there, just empty carpet, and the sound of me humming, the same way I do when I'm trying not to cry. That was the first night I truly believed something had followed me home. The next morning, I noticed the bruises, pale blue marks along my ribs, as if someone had pressed fingers into my side while I slept. They didn't hurt exactly, just felt placed, deliberate, tuned like a message in a language my body was starting to learn. Eddie and Sam stopped replying to texts that week, not in a dramatic way, more like a quiet fade out. Sam left me on read. Eddie sent a thumbs up to a message, and then ghosted. I wasn't worried at first. Life happens. School, parents. Maybe they were just over it, to know. But then I saw Sam at the gas station. He didn't see me. He was standing by the lottery machine, staring at the scratch cards like he didn't know what they were. His lips were moving, but no sound came out. I got closer and realized he wasn't talking. He was mouthing the chant from the ritual. I left without saying anything. Didn't even buy what I came for. Tack home. I found something strange. A candle on my desk. One of our candles. I knew because the wax was misshapen in the same way. Warped from being stuck in Sam's backpack. I hadn't brought it home. I was sure of that. I would have remembered packing it, but there it was, sitting on top of my math notebook. The wick blackened, and the base cooled to the touch. I threw it out the window, watched it roll into the garden, and bounce once before settling into the grass. Then I turned back, and there it was again, right where it had been, like I hadn't moved it at all. The air in my room thickened. My ears started to ring. I sat down, slow, careful, and just stared at the candle, not touching it, not blinking. And that's when I saw the flame. It lit itself. No spark, no match, just a gentle whoop, like breath catching fire. The flame leaned sideways again, just like it had in the chapel. I couldn't move, couldn't even panic. The fear was too big for adrenaline. It had evolved into something cold and precise, a kind of surrender. That's when the whisper came back, only this time. It wasn't just a voice behind me. It came from inside my ears, like my eardrums were being used as speakers. Just one word again, but it echoed like it had 1,000 meanings behind it. Closer. I ran, didn't look back, didn't stop until I was 3 blocks away, sitting on the curb in my pajamas, phone clutched in one hand like a lifeline. I called Sam, no answer. I called Eddie, straight to voicemail. I almost called my mom. Almost. But what would I say? Help. A haunted candle wants me to cuddle with it. Instead I sat there until dawn broke, warm and pink across the sky, like none of it had happened. When I finally walked home, the candle was gone, but the smell wasn't. I didn't go to school the next day. I told myself I had a sore throat, which wasn't exactly a lie. It felt like I'd been screaming all night, even though I hadn't made a sound. The skin at the base of my neck itched, almost like a rash, but nothing showed up in the mirror, just this faint red indentation where my collarbone dips, like something had been pressed there and held for a while. I stayed under the covers, letting the world move on without me for a day. I figured if I just didn't engage, if I played dead long enough, maybe it would get bored and leave. That plan lasted about 4 hours. Then I opened the fridge. Everything inside tasted off, even sealed stuff, yogurt, milk, the ketchup. I tried squirting directly onto my tongue, in a moment of weird desperation. All of it had that same dull metal flavor from the other day. It's not rotten, just wrong, like something had rewritten the rules of taste and forgot to tell my brain. I ended up chewing ice cubes just to feel normal. Around noon, I started hearing the papers rustling. At first, I thought it was the windows being open, but I hadn't opened them. They were locked, and the breeze outside had stopped. It was still and warm, almost too warm for October. To the rustling, it wasn't coming from loose papers blowing around. It was coming from inside my closet. I stood there for a long time, not opening it, just staring. Then the humming started again, Not from under the bed this time, from above, inside the attic. It was higher pitched now, to less like machinery, more like a voice, far away, caught in something. It didn't sound angry, or even sad. It sounded patient, like it had all the time in the world. That night, I couldn't fall asleep, not for the usual reasons either. I wanted to sleep, badly, but every time I drifted off, I'd snap awake within minutes, my body jerking like someone had pulled a string. I got maybe 20 minutes total, in chunks, each one full of half dreams, shadows with candlelight teeth, doors that breathed open on their own, faces with my eyes, but no expression behind them. Sometime around 3 a.m., I got up to splash water on my face. My reflection didn't follow. That's not a joke. I leaned down over the sink, turned on the tap, and splashed myself awake. When I looked back up, nothing. No foggy shape, no tired kid staring back, just the mirror, empty. Then slowly, like it was climbing through the glass from somewhere else, my reflection faded in, smiling, just barely, like it knew something I didn't. I backed away, shaking, heart pounding like a trapped bird. The smile faded with me. Break. I didn't go back into the bathroom that night. I curled up on the couch instead, surrounded by every light in the living room, every blanket I owned. I put the TV on mute, just for movement, just to remind myself time was still ticking forward. I don't know when I fell asleep, only that I woke to the sound of something scratching at the front door, slow and deliberate. Not claws, not nails, something duller, like bone. When I finally worked up the nerve to peek through the peephole, there was nothing there, but the smell had returned. That same blend of wax, smoke, and burnt salt, not quite sulfur, more like the ghost of it, and something else, something warm and coppery beneath it all, iron. By morning, the taste had crept into everything. It was in the toothpaste, the air, even the shower, which now steamed up the mirror before I'd even turned the water on. I kept checking to see if mold was growing in the vents, but everything looked clean. The problem wasn't in the house. The problem was the house, or maybe the house was starting to become part of the problem. I opened my bedroom window to let in some air, maybe clear the stillness, try to reclaim some control. But the moment I cracked it open, I heard it. Whispers, not words, not sentences, just the shape of language, the suggestion of sound, like the syllables were too old to be remembered properly. They weren't coming from outside, they were coming from the space between, that little sliver of air between the window glass and the screen, a threshold, and it didn't want to be open. The whispers stopped the second I shut the window. I decided then and there, I needed help, not from Sam, not from Eddie, not even from my parents. They wouldn't understand, but there was one person who might, Mrs. Kemple, the town librarian. She'd been around forever, knew every bit of local lore, used to give us haunted history tours on Halloween before the school stopped funding it. I hadn't seen her since middle school, but I remembered her voice, low, gravelly, with a rhythm like turning old pages. She felt like folklore, and if anyone knew what to do about accidental rituals and disappearing friends, it'd be her. I walked to the library after sunset, not because I wanted to, but because something told me daylight wouldn't help. The place was nearly empty, just one old man asleep in a chair and the hum of ancient radiators. She was behind the desk, sorting returns. When she saw me, her mouth twisted slightly, not into a smile, into recognition, a kind of weary sigh, like, "Ah, you too." I didn't even get the first sentence out. "I think I did something I shouldn't have," I started. She nodded, turning toward the back. "Come with me." We sat in a cramped office lined with books that had never seen daylight. She listened, not just with her ears, with her whole body, like she was mapping every word I said onto some secret blueprint in her head. When I finished, she exhaled through her nose. "You broke the third night rule," she said quietly. What? If you call something you don't sleep on the third night, you wait, you keep watch, you acknowledge it. Otherwise it starts to think you belong to it. My stomach dropped. I didn't even know there was a third night rule. She nodded again, not surprised, just sad. No one ever does. That's why the ritual works. She scribbled something on a yellow scrap of paper. Do not sleep tonight, no matter what you hear, no matter what it shows you. I unfolded the note, just a single word, written in shaking hand. Remember. And in that moment I felt something shift, not in the room, in me, like a lock had clicked open somewhere deep inside, and whatever had been waiting there had just stood up. I didn't go home right away. I walked, just wandered the town, hoodie pulled tight, headphones in, but no music playing. I needed to look normal, even if everything inside me was unraveling by the hour. The streetlights buzzed overhead, that low flickering amber glow that never quite touches the ground. I noticed they weren't all synced. Some blinked faster, some hummed louder, and one, just outside the post office, buzzed in rhythm, like a pulse, like breath. It wasn't until I passed the corner deli that I realized what I'd been doing, listening for whispers. I kept checking shadows, double-taking at reflections in windows, expecting me to be on the other side doing something I wasn't. That's what it had come to. I didn't even trust my own silhouette anymore. When I finally made it home, the front door was unlocked. I hadn't left it that way. I stepped inside carefully. No lights, just moonlight through the kitchen window silvering the countertops. Everything looked the same, but it felt rearranged, like someone had taken the energy of the place and turned it slightly sideways. I checked every room. Nothing was missing, nothing added, except for one thing. On my bed, propped up like it had been waiting, was my toothbrush, covered in red wax, still warm. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't, even if I wanted to. I followed Mrs. Kemple's warning like gospel, sat on my bedroom floor, with a thermos of bitter instant coffee, and the note she gave me curled tight in my fist. Remember. I stared at that word for hours, like it might start explaining itself, and sometime after 2 a.m., I started to understand what it meant, because I started hearing the voice again, not whispering this time, singing, a low tuneless hum, just a few notes repeated over and over, coming from my bathroom mirror. I didn't look. I refused to look. I knew whatever was in there would be wearing my face again, and I knew this time it wouldn't smile, it would watch. When morning finally came, or at least the dull gray suggestion of it, I staggered outside, eyes aching, head buzzing, the coffee now cold and gritty in my mouth. I didn't feel better. I felt peeled, like staying awake had stripped away something my body usually hides when I sleep. But I remembered, and the memory came with a price. Back when we did the ritual, there was something I hadn't noticed. Not until now. I remembered Sam drawing the circle. I remembered Eddie holding the candles. I remembered the chant, the wind, the cold. But there was a moment, just before the flame surged and died, when I felt something move inside me. Not metaphorically, I mean literally. Like a jolt, like something crawled through my chest, and stayed. At the time, I thought it was adrenaline, fear. Now, I wasn't so sure, because the more I remembered, the more I felt it. It wasn't just following me. It was in me. I was the candle. I spent the afternoon cleaning my room, not for hygiene, for control. I vacuumed, wiped down surfaces, opened every drawer and said each item's name out loud. Comb, flashlight, sock. It felt stupid, but grounding, until I opened my journal and saw the writing. Pages and pages I didn't remember filling, written in blocky, uneven strokes, like a hand learning how to write for the first time. At first, it looked like gibberish. Then patterns emerged. Names, dates, locations, and one sentence, repeated over and over across the margins. I wasn't supposed to survive. I slammed the book shut and backed away. There was no denying it anymore. Something had attached itself to me, something old, and it had rules, not human ones. Something was keeping a ledger. I didn't hear from Eddie again after that. No texts, no posts. His account vanished completely. No profile pic, no follow account. Just a blank page like he'd never existed. When I biked by his house, the mailbox was overflowing. The curtains hadn't moved in days. His porch light was still on, flickering like a broken signal. And Sam, well, Sam started showing up in places I wasn't expecting. I saw him through a bus window, just standing in a field off the highway, barefoot, staring straight up at the sky. I saw him outside my school, not in a crowd, not in passing, just leaning against the flagpole, expressionless, like he was waiting for someone to come out and name him. I saw him in my dreams, only he wasn't Sam anymore. His face was wrong, stretched, empty-eyed, candle wax skin, and that humming, always that humming, coming from deep in his throat, like a broken engine trying to turn over. I finally broke and called Mrs. Kemple again, told her about the journal, the reflection, the singing, all of it. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I'll never forget. "It's remembering you now." "What?" "You called it. And now it's trying to remember what you are, how you taste, where you end. And it begins. That's why it wears your face. That's why it knows your name." My mouth went dry. What do I do? She hesitated. "There's a chance, a small one, but it involves going back to the chapel. No, to the moment." She told me rituals like this don't end. They just settle into you, like sediment in a bottle. If you don't stir it, it sinks. But the longer it sits, the more it wants out. "You didn't finish it," she said. "You just paused it, and it hates being paused." That night, I didn't sleep again, not because I was afraid, but because every time I blinked, I felt someone else's eyelids close too. By the fourth night, sleep wasn't just dangerous, it was impossible. Every time I got close, something would yank me back. Sometimes a sound, a creak behind the door, or that humming noise rising like a siren under my bed. Other times it was worse. I'd be right on the edge, body sinking, breath slowing, and then I'd feel breath on my face. Not mine, cold and wet and too steady, like someone leaning inches from my nose, watching me fail at staying awake. So I stopped trying. I built a kind of nest on my bedroom floor, blankets, salt lines, open books, a flashlight with dying batteries. I don't know why the books helped. None of them were useful, just old paperbacks and worn-out school novels, but they felt like weight, something to tether me here. That morning, I found another bruise, this one at the base of my spine, shaped like a thumbprint, perfectly circular. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what it meant. It had found a handhold. Desperate people do weird things. Around 10 a.m., running on caffeine fumes and raw dread, I started Googling phrases like ritual inversion and banishing dream parasites. The results were useless. Message boards full of half-literate cryptids, arguing over spell components. But one post stood out. A thread called "Don't Sleep on the Third Night." It only had one reply, just a link to an archive site. The file name, chapel_rights_survivornotes.pdf. I clicked it. It wouldn't open. I tried again. Still nothing. On the third try, my laptop shut itself off. Battery full, power light on, screen black, like it had just refused. I went back to the library, back to Mrs. Kemple. This time she didn't take me to her office. She led me downstairs, a locked room under the children's section. I hadn't even known it existed. Inside were boxes, yellowed labels, dust that moved when it shouldn't. She handed me a folder, no name, no title, just a wax seal, long broken, and a faint smell of mildew and something else, something too warm. I opened it. Inside photos, dozens, all black and white, blurry, faces indistinct, but the chapel, always the same, that same broken steeple, that same circle of candles, and in every photo, always at the edge, barely visible, a shape, not a person, not really, just the suggestion of one, tall, watching. I swallowed hard. There've been others, I asked. She nodded. Always. I flipped to the last photo. It was recent, color, digital, and clear. The chapel, the candles. 3 kids, me, Sam, and Eddie, in mid-ritual. Only, none of us had taken a photo. There wasn't even anyone else there. I ran out of the library, didn't say goodbye, didn't thank her. I don't think she expected me to. I walked for hours, trying to unsee the photo burned into my brain, my face lit by candlelight, my mouth open, mid-chant, but my eyes looked like they were already gone, like something else was behind them, pressing forward. That evening, I found myself back at the chapel. I didn't plan it, I just ended up there. The path was overgrown, the grass too tall, like no one had been here in years, even though we'd been here just days ago. The bell tower creaked in the wind. I stepped inside. It smelled like before, candle wax, rot, rain, but this time there was something else, breath. The whole place was breathing, not fast, not loud, just a low, steady exhale. The air moved around me like lungs expanding. My skin prickled, my heartbeat stumbled, like it was syncing with the place. I looked down. The circle was still there. The candles were melted stubs now, but one of them, the one I'd placed, had reformed. New wax, fresh wick, waiting. I stepped into the circle, didn't know why. Maybe I thought finishing what we started would end it. Maybe I just wanted to understand. I knelt, touched the candle. It flared to life, not orange or yellow, but blue, pale, cold. The air changed. The wind stilled, the breath stopped, and then I heard it. A voice, not loud, not angry, just disappointed. You didn't stay awake. It wasn't coming from around me. It was coming from inside me. I could feel the words in my bones. You let it in, it said, and now you're forgetting. What am I forgetting? I whispered, but I already knew. The ritual wasn't for summoning something, it was for separating. A test. You draw the circle, speak the words, stay awake on the 3rd night. If you succeed, you stay whole. If you fail, it takes the part of you that's most awake. And I had failed, not just once, over and over, because this, all of it, wasn't the first time I'd lived through it. It was just the first time I'd remembered. The voice inside me, it was me, a version left behind, trapped in a loop, begging to finish what never should have started. I stumbled out of the chapel, heart in my throat, and as I passed the broken threshold, I felt something stay behind, like it was tied there, like it had always been. But when I got home, my reflection was already waiting for me, and this time, it didn't smile, it mouthed one word, again. I stopped using mirrors after that. It's not as easy as you'd think. They're everywhere. Bathroom, hallway, phone screen. Even the microwave door caught my reflection one night, distorted by the glass and the flickering kitchen light. And in all of them, the same thing happened. My reflection didn't copy me. It watched me, like it was waiting for a cue, like I was the illusion. I covered them all with towels and duct tape, but the damage was done. Something was out, something wearing me like a coat, and the more I saw it, the more I felt it in my head, that soft humming in the back of my skull, steady and low, like a motor left running in a locked room. I tried calling Sam again, one last time. I just needed to hear someone else say this was real, or at least tell me it wasn't. No answer. Then, just as I was about to hang up, the voicemail picked up, only it didn't play the usual message. It was him, breathing, slow and crackling like the speaker was underwater. Then a whisper, "You're almost there." Then silence. No click, no disconnect, just dead air. I threw the phone across the room. It didn't break, but when I picked it up again, the voicemail was gone. No trace, no timestamp, like I'd imagined it. Except I hadn't. The voice was mine. I slept for 15 minutes around sunrise. I didn't mean to. My body just caved, and in that short stretch of unconsciousness, I had a dream. I was back in the chapel, only this time, it wasn't abandoned. It was perfect, rebuilt, stained glass glinting in morning light, polished wood floors, velvet pews, but it was empty, just me, and the sound of wind. Then the candle at the front lit itself, blue flame, and the same voice, mine, but slower, deeper, said, "Finish the circle." When I woke up, I had ash under my fingernails, the candle on my desk, the one I'd thrown out, the one that had reappeared, was gone again. Only now, the spot where it used to sit was marked, a blackened ring, burnt directly into the wood. I touched it, cold, not like something used to burn there, like something was still waiting to. At school I kept my head down, walked the halls like a ghost. I could feel the gap widening between me and everything else, the hum of normal life getting fainter. The lights buzzed louder when I passed under them. People avoided my eyes. One kid bumped into me by the lockers and mumbled, "Sorry," even though I hadn't moved. Then in the middle of sixth period, I got a message. No name, no number, just text. "Go back, it's not done." And below that, a photo, blurry, tilted. It was the chapel again, only this time, there was someone inside it, standing in the circle. It was me, but not now me. It was the version of me from the night of the ritual. Hoodie, backpack, wet from the rain, frozen in that moment, like someone had taken a screenshot of a memory. When I got home, there was mail waiting for me. No return address, just my name, handwritten in black ink. Inside, a single page, photocopied from an old book. The text was faded and smudged, but one paragraph was underlined. In rituals of division, the self must be acknowledged. Ignoring the third night seals the rift. The host forgets, the echo remembers. Until balance is restored, the flame remains. And at the bottom, a handwritten note. "One of you is lying." I dropped the page. Suddenly it was so quiet I could hear the blood in my ears. The fridge wasn't humming. The clock had stopped. Even the birds outside, gone. Then I heard it. A click, soft, from my bedroom. I stepped inside. The candle was back, lit, and next to it, sitting neatly in the center of my bed, my toothbrush, wrapped in a ribbon made of hair. Mine. I didn't scream. There's a point where the fear stops being sharp and starts turning soft, like your brain can't hold it anymore. So it wraps it up in cotton and tucks it away. I sat down on the edge of the bed, hands on my knees, and stared at the flame. It didn't flicker. It pulsed, like it was breathing. And then I saw it, just for a second, reflected in the wax. A face, my face, but hollowed out, skin sagging, like melted plastic, eyes empty sockets, mouth open wider than it should be, whispering. That night I made a decision. If I was the echo, I wanted to know. If I was the host, I needed to finish what we started. I lit 5 candles, sat cross-legged in a circle, just like we did that first night, spoke the chant from memory, though I didn't remember learning it. and the moment the last syllable left my lips, the air dropped, the walls creaked, and my phone rang. No name, no number, I answered, my own voice on the other end. Don't trust the flame. I dropped the phone. It clattered across the floor, screen cracking, flashlight turning on by itself. The beam landed on my closet door, which was slowly opening. Inside, darkness, thick and wrong. Not the kind cast by shadows, a living dark. Something stepped forward, tall, pale, candlelight leaking from its eye sockets. It wore my shape, but wrong. Taller, thinner, stretched like a funhouse mirror, and it was smiling. Finally, it said, "You're listening." Then it stepped into me, and I felt everything shift. Like a film reel, clicking over to the next scene. Like waking up from a dream you didn't know you were having. Except I wasn't waking up. I was remembering, and something inside me whispered, "One of us has to go." I didn't move, not because I was frozen with fear, but because I didn't know whose body I was in anymore. My hands still looked like mine. My voice still sounded the same when I whispered, "What is this?" But something fundamental had tilted, like the floor of reality had shifted a few degrees while I wasn't paying attention. It felt like I'd stepped into my own shadow, and my shadow hadn't moved with me. I stood up slowly, every joint aching like I'd been asleep for years. The room looked normal at first. Same posters, same lamp, same textbooks on the desk, but the air was thick, like I'd stepped into a greenhouse, too warm, too damp, the kind of heat that smells like mold and wet stones. Then I noticed the door was gone, not closed, not locked, just gone. Smooth wall where it used to be, as if it had never been there, till like my room was now a sealed box, cut off from the rest of the world. I spun, checking the windows. Same story, the glass was still there, but outside was nothing, not darkness, not even static, just blankness, a complete, swallowing white. I wasn't in my house anymore. I was inside something, inside me, or the version of me that the ritual remembered, and it had rebuilt my life from memory. Wrong. The closet door creaked open again. This time, nothing stepped out. No candlelight reflection, no echo of myself wearing my skin like a hoodie. Just the hum, soft, rhythmic, that low-frequency presence again. I walked toward it, slow and careful. The air near the door was colder, stoler. I could see my breath. Little puffs of fog that didn't dissipate, just hung there like they were watching me back. Inside the closet, darkness, not the living dark from before. This was different. It felt curious. I stepped in. Immediately, my foot hit something solid. A step, another, and another. It was a staircase, winding down into the dark. I didn't know why I followed it. Maybe because it felt familiar. Maybe because I didn't have a choice. Each step was softer than it should have been, like I was walking on pages, not wood. And the further I went, the more it smelled like books. Not old library books, diaries, ink, leather, and dried out memories. At the bottom of the stairs was a door, no handle, just a keyhole. I knelt down and peered through. On the other side, I saw myself, not the waxy thing from before, not a monster, just me, sitting at a desk, writing, candle burning beside me, hair falling into my face, eyes wide, distant, the kind of stare you get when you're deep in memory or possession. He looked up suddenly, right at the door, right at me. He smiled, not cruel, not empty, just resigned. He said, "You're doing better this time." I stumbled back from the door, fell onto the stairs. The hum rose behind me, louder, now, vibrating the walls. I could feel it inside my teeth, inside my skull. It wasn't just sound anymore. It was pull, a gravitational kind of pressure, like something vast had turned its attention toward me and was starting to reel me in. And then it spoke, not in words, in remembrance. Suddenly I remembered every time I'd lit a match, every time I'd stood in front of a mirror, and blinked too slowly every time I'd woken from a dream. And something had followed me into the waking world. This wasn't the first ritual, not even the 10th. It had always been me, testing myself, falling short, leaving pieces behind. That's what it wanted. That's what the flame was. Not a being, not a god, just a mechanism, a litmus test for the soul. Draw the circle, speak the words, stay awake, face your echo, complete the loop, or forget again, and again, and again. I climbed back up the stairs, legs shaking, breath shallow. When I stepped out of the closet, the room had changed again. Now it wasn't my room, it was the chapel, but distorted. The walls were too tall, too narrow, lit by a dozen hovering candles that didn't flicker. The floor had no seams, just a smooth, endless stone covered in ash. And in the center, the circle, waiting. There were 3 candles burning already. One flickered wildly, unstable, faint. One burned steady, strong. The third, it pulsed like a heartbeat. I knew what they were. Me. And what was left of me. All the pieces I'd scattered through every unfinished version of this ritual. They were waiting to be joined again. But there was only one spot left in the circle. I stepped forward, knelt, closed my eyes, spoke the final line of the chant. Not from memory. This time, from truth, because this time, I remembered. I am the fire and the fire is me. Let what remained return to be. The candles snapped out. The silence that followed was total. Then came a sound. Not a hum, not a whisper, but the crack of something unsealing, like a vacuum jar being opened after years. And in the darkness, I heard one final word from every voice I'd ever been. Finally. The silence didn't last long. It never lasts long. There's something about quiet that draws the loudest things out of hiding, like a lake so still, it invites stones just to break the surface. In the seconds after I spoke the final words, I felt the weight of the world press down, not gravity, attention, like something massive and ageless had turned its gaze toward me and was studying every fracture in my being. Then the room exhaled. Every candle relit itself, not with fire, with memory. They didn't flicker, they played. Each flame became a scene. In one, I saw myself as a child, standing in front of a mirror with a flashlight under my chin, daring my reflection to blink first. In another, I was 16, lying on my roof in summer, staring at the sky, hearing my name whispered in the wind and pretending I hadn't. Then I saw myself walking into the chapel for the first time, not the night of the ritual, but before it, long before, with Sam and Eddie. Only it wasn't this Sam, not this Eddie. Different faces, different time, same circle, same chant, same failure. I staggered back, away from the candles, but the room didn't let me go. The walls began to pulse, slow, rhythmic, like the inside of a throat. The air grew damp, heavy. The taste of wax and salt filled my mouth. Then the floor split open, not with a crack or a quake. It peeled, revealing a spiral staircase, carved from bone, smooth, worn by countless steps. The candlelight followed me as I descended, one flickering beside me, one behind, one just ahead, always just out of reach. The deeper I went, the more I remembered. Not thoughts, not facts, but feelings. A sense of constant return, of being pulled back again and again to a place that wanted to forget me, but couldn't. I remembered the ritual in the chapel, then the basement, then the greenhouse behind my grandfather's house. Always a circle, always 3 candles, always the rule. Don't sleep on the third night. Every time I failed, it took a part of me. Curiosity, joy, memory, voice. I was a ship patched with older versions of itself, and the sea was still calling me home. At the bottom of the spiral was a room, circular, familiar, ancient. There was no furniture, no windows, just the circle again, burned into the floor, and in the center, a mirror, black glass, frame made of rusted iron and twine. It stood on its own, taller than me, wrapped in something that looked like skin but wasn't, and reflected in it. Not me, not anymore. It was the others, all the versions I'd left behind. They stared back silently. One had no eyes, one had hands burned black to the wrist, one had a stitched mouth, lips sealed tight with red thread, but they all looked tired, not angry, not hungry, just tired, like they'd been carrying something for me, holding it, waiting, and now it was time to give it back. The mirror rippled. One by one, they stepped forward, not out of the mirror, into me. I felt each one land like a cold raindrop, not painful, not even strange, just familiar, like remembering a name you used to go by. With each version, I felt more full, more real, like my skin had never quite fit until now. They weren't ghosts, they weren't parasites, they were me, and I was unfinished without them. Then the mirror turned black, no reflection, no flicker, just void. Then from that darkness came the final one, the last echo, tall, silent, wrapped in smoke and ash. Its eyes were candles, two small flames, flickering gently. This was the one I had feared most, the version of me that had survived every ritual, but never left. It stepped forward and smiled, not cruel, not proud, just ready. It reached out a hand. I took it, and the moment our fingers touched, the void shattered, like glass in slow motion. Each piece of the mirror froze mid-air, suspended in orbit, catching fragments of every version of myself. And in each shard, I saw something different. Laughter, fear, hope, sleep, and I knew the truth. The ritual hadn't been about summoning anything. It had been about rebuilding, restoring what had been lost, reclaiming the parts of me I'd left behind. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in my room. The door was where it belonged, the mirror covered, the closet shut, the candle on my desk snuffed out. But something was different, something quiet. A pressure I hadn't realized I'd been carrying was gone. The humming, silent, not because it had left, but because it had become part of me. The ritual was over, or maybe it had finally finished itself. But just as I settled into the quiet, I noticed something on my pillow. A note, same handwriting as before, just 3 words: stay awake, still.
I didn't sleep.
Not that night, not the next. Even though the pressure was gone, even though the humming had faded, I couldn't shake the weight of those words. Stay awake, still. Still what? Still in danger, still unfinished, still not me? I didn't know. And the longer I sat with it, the more it felt like the ritual hadn't ended at all, just evolved, like it had dug itself deeper, rewriting rules I didn't understand. Every sound felt deliberate, every silence loaded. I watched the candle on my desk, unlit, but not dead. Its wick was whole again, fresh. On the 3rd night, I heard footsteps, not loud, just soft taps across the kitchen floor, then the creak of the hallway, my door handle turning. I didn't move, just held my breath and stared at the ceiling, heart slamming in my chest like it was trying to escape. The door opened a crack, but no one came in. Just a folded note slid across the floor and stopped by my bed. I waited a full hour before touching it. Inside, you lit the wrong one, and below that, it's not you they want, it's the part that remembers. I should have felt scared, but all I felt was tired. The next morning, I found something buried in the garden, but gone outside to feel the sun on my face, desperate for some kind of warmth, some reminder that the real world still existed. And I stepped on something soft, not grass, paper, a notebook, waterlogged and warped, half buried under the roots of the lilac bush. I pulled it out slowly, mud clinging to its edges. It was mine, or at least my handwriting, page after page of dreams, nightmares, descriptions of rituals I didn't remember doing, some in ink, some in red, some in symbols I couldn't read, but somehow understood. One phrase repeated again and again. You are not the first. That night, I decided to test it, to see if I was really free. I lit all 3 candles again, not in a circle, but in a line. Watched them burn. Nothing happened for an hour, 2. Then, just as I started to doze off, the middle candle exploded, a sharp pop, like a firecracker, followed by a rush of wax that spilled over my desk and steamed against the wood. The smoke curled upward, not into the air, but into a shape, a face, mine, but older, eyes sunken, mouth sewn shut. It didn't speak, it didn't need to. It just shook its head slowly, like I'd made a mistake, like I'd failed some final test I hadn't known I was taking. Then it vanished. I tried calling Mrs. Kemple again. The line was dead, not out of service, just silent, like the call had been absorbed before it could ring. So I went back to the library, but the door was locked, a sign taped to the window, closed until further notice. Renovations, sorry for the inconvenience. No date, no phone number, no explanation. I peered through the glass. The books were gone. Every shelf, empty, except for one table, in the center of the room. One candle, still burning. I ran home, not because I was scared, but because I finally understood. The ritual hadn't just attached to me. It had nested, burrowed itself into places, people, memories. The chapel was just the start. The candlelight was a signal, an invitation, and someone, or something had been answering, for a long, long time. When I got home, there was another note on my bed, different handwriting this time, sharper, angrier, just one word, stop, taped to it, a Polaroid, me, standing in front of the chapel, only, I hadn't been there, not recently, not in days, and in the photo, I wasn't alone. There was someone behind me, half hidden, smiling, holding a lit match. That night, the dreams came back. I was underground again, not in the spiral stairs this time, but deeper, in a room without walls, just space, just void. Floating candles lit themselves in the dark, each one showing a version of me curled on the floor, sleeping, and above each one, a figure, thin, flickering, made of shadow and wax, feeding, one by one, and I watched, unable to move, unable to help, just a prisoner in my own dream, witnessing the slow consumption of everything I'd tried to protect. When I woke up, my window was open, even though I hadn't touched it in weeks. There were 3 symbols scratched into the glass. I recognized them from the notebook buried in the garden. One meant threshold, one meant choice, and the last, I didn't know, but it hummed when I touched it, vibrated deep in my bones, like a tuning fork struck against something ancient, something alive. I covered the window with a blanket, burned the candle down to the wick, and waited for morning. But morning never came. The sun didn't rise, not outside my window, not behind the clouds, not even as a pale suggestion on the horizon, just nothing, an endless starless dark that pressed against the edges of the world like wet cloth. I waited for it to pass, telling myself it was just a power outage, just a storm, just a temporary lapse in whatever this was. But I knew better. The moment I opened my bedroom door, I felt it, not cold, not heat, a kind of stillness that didn't belong, like the air was waiting for someone else to breathe first. The house looked the same, mostly, but everything was wrong, in the way dreams are wrong, close enough to pass for normal at a glance, but too smooth, too silent, too arranged. The picture frames on the wall all had the same photo, me, staring straight ahead, no expression, candlelight behind me, casting tall, twitching shadows, The kitchen clock ticked, but the hands never moved, and when I opened the fridge, it was empty. No shelves, no food, just a mirror inside, and in that mirror, not me. Someone taller, someone waiting. I backed away slowly, closed the fridge, didn't breathe until I was back in the hall. This wasn't my house anymore. It was the memory of my house, and something was puppeteering it, testing me, trying to see what I'd do. I turned on every light, every lamp, every flashlight, and then, just for good measure, I lit a candle, watched it closely, waited for it to hum, to speak, to move. It didn't, but after 5 minutes, the flame split, just a flicker, barely noticeable. One flame, then two, twisting around each other like dancers, and then the wax beneath it shifted, cemented, moved, like something under the surface was stretching upward, trying to reach me. I doused it, fast, no hesitation. The flame hissed and died, but the wax kept moving for several seconds, bubbling like it was angry, hungry. I pushed the candle off the desk. It hit the floor and shattered. No wax inside, just ash, cold and bone dry. The humming started again around midnight, not in my ears this time, in my chest, a deep, resonant vibration, like my ribs were being used as tuning forks. I staggered into the bathroom and threw up nothing, dry heaves, black dots in my vision. My reflection didn't even bother mimicking me anymore. It just stood there, calm, curious, tilted its head like I was the strange one. Then it smiled, not cruelly, just knowingly, and raised a candle into view. I didn't see the flame, just the light it cast behind me. When I turned around, the hallway was gone, replaced with something older. Stone walls, low, arched ceiling, dripping moisture from cracks above. It was the corridor from the chapel, the one that had been bricked off decades ago, the one Mrs. Kemple said didn't exist, but I remembered now. We'd gone down it, Sam, Eddie and I, long before the ritual. We'd heard something down there, something that hummed, something that said, "Come closer." Even though no one had spoken, I stepped through the door, felt the air shift, gravity twist, not walking, sliding, like the floor itself wanted me forward. The corridor curved, impossibly long, and on the walls were carvings, circles, flames, eyes, always eyes, and always three. At the end of the tunnel was a chamber, not a chapel, not my room, something older, circular stone walls, blackened by soot, a pit in the center, glowing faintly with ember light, and above it, suspended in midair, a single object, my journal, not the one I found in the garden, not the one I wrote in school, but something else. The first one, the one from the first ritual, the one I'd burned, and yet here it was, whole, waiting. I reached for it, and when my fingers brushed the cover, it opened itself. Pages turned, fast, violent, like wind through trees. Then it stopped. There was one sentence written in handwriting I barely recognized. Mine, but younger, crooked, afraid. If I forget again, don't trust the light. And beneath it, there is no out, only through. I stepped back from the pit, but something rose from it. Not fire, not smoke. A figure, shadow made solid. No face, no eyes. But I knew it was me, or a version of me. Maybe the first version. The one who thought the ritual was just a dare, just a game. He stepped toward me slowly. His mouth didn't move, but I heard his voice all the same. "You didn't finish it." "I did," I said. I said the words. I stayed awake. She shook his head. You remembered too much. I was shaking. Then what do I do? Forget. I don't want to forget. You don't have a choice. The room around us began to dissolve. Walls fading. Pit cooling. Journal crumbling to dust. And with it, so did he. Wake up, he whispered as he turned to ash. Before you remember the end. And just like that, I was standing in my room again. 3 candles on the floor, all lit. And the humming, louder than ever. The candles shouldn't have been lit. I'd blown them out. I remembered doing it. Remembered the hiss of the wick, the sharp scent of burnt wax. But here they were, glowing steady. No flicker, no smoke, just 3 perfect flames, and they were aligned differently now. Not in a circle, not in a line, but a triangle, pointed at me, like an arrow. I stepped toward them, slowly, barefoot. The floor felt colder than it should have, like stone instead of carpet. And the closer I got, the more I realized the air wasn't still. It was moving, not wind, not a breeze. A slow inhale, followed by silence. Then, an exhale. The room was breathing again, just like the chapel, just like before. Only now, it felt more personal. Not a place remembering itself, a thing remembering me. I knelt beside the candles, listened. There was a voice this time, wound tight with static, like it was being played on a broken tape deck. You burned it, it said. You buried it. You buried me. I shook my head. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't mean to. You did. The flames flared. For a moment, they weren't fire at all. They were eyes, watching me. All 3 of them. One filled with disappointment, one filled with fear, and the last, with hunger. That's when I saw it. The triangle wasn't just a shape. It was a lock. 3 points, 3 failures, 3 echoes I'd left behind, burning in their own loops. Then now, they'd found each other, merged, and I was the key. There was a sound then, like a match striking, over and over, not quite catching. I turned. The closet door was open again. Inside, pitch dark, except for a flickering spark, barely holding on. It blinked like a faulty bulb, in and out, until it steadied into a shape, a figure, crouched, thin hands cradling something, a candle, unlit. Then the voice again, behind me this time. You can end it. I turned around. No one there, just the whisper lingering. You can let it go. I should have said no, should have backed away, shut the door, called someone, anyone. But the truth was, I was tired, not just of the fear, not just of the candles, or the echoes, or the endless cycles of memory and forgetting. I was tired of being the only one left. Everyone else had already been claimed. Eddie, Sam, versions of me scattered across timelines, trapped in ritual loops like moths around a flame. I was the only one still standing. And maybe that meant I was the last piece, or maybe it meant I was the final offering. I walked into the closet, sat across from the figure. It didn't look up, just held out the candle. I took it. My fingers burned where I touched it, but not from heat, from memory. Suddenly, I was everywhere at once, back in the chapel, back in the spiral stair, back in the garden, back in a room I'd never seen but still remembered. A white space with no doors, lit by flame that cast no shadow, and I saw myself in all of them, alone, watching, waiting. I lit the candle. It didn't catch at first. Then, a soft pop, blue flame, always blue. The figure across from me looked up. It was me, not an echo, not a shadow. Me, no waxy skin, no black eyes, just tired. He smiled. I've been waiting. For what? I whispered. For you to stop fighting. The flame grew, swallowed the candle, then my hand, then the room. It didn't hurt, didn't burn. It felt like water, or silk, or static, and with it came a final memory, one I'd never had, or had chosen to forget, the very first ritual. The chapel was new then, the stones clean, the wood polished, candles in brass holders, a real book in our hands, not a printout from some forum. We lit the candles, we said the words, and when the time came to stay awake, I was the one who fell asleep. I had started it, and every version of me had been paying the price since. The blue flame reached my eyes. I blinked, then suddenly, I wasn't in the closet anymore. I was back in my bed, morning light streaming through the window. No triangle on the floor, no humming, no candle, just silence, just peace. But something was different. I sat up slowly, walked to the mirror, looked in, and this time, my reflection smiled when I did. The first thing I did was touch the glass, just to be sure. Cold, solid, ordinary, no flicker behind my eyes, no second delay between my movements and the reflection, no candlelight lingering in corners that didn't exist. It was me, and only me. I got dressed slowly, savoring the feel of clean clothes, warm light, the mundane softness of socks on carpet. I opened the window. Sunlight poured in, golden, not blue. The world outside was alive again. Cars passed, a dog barked, wind moved the trees instead of whispering through them. For the first time in what felt like years, I believed it. Maybe it was really over, but then I checked my phone. No notifications, no missed calls, no recent messages. I scrolled through my contacts. Sam's name was gone, Eddie's too, like they'd never existed. No pictures of us, no texts, just an empty log of conversations with myself, and one draft message I didn't remember writing. Don't forget this time. I closed the app, went to my gallery. Same thing. Every photo I remembered taking was still there, just wrong. Smiles too wide, eyes glassy, candlelight glinting where there should have been none. In one, I was standing in front of the chapel again, hoodie soaked through, mouth open like I was mid-scream, and behind me, nothing, but I knew better. I could feel something just outside the frame. Waiting, the doorbell rang. I froze, waited. It rang again. Normal chime, friendly, familiar. Still, I moved cautiously, every step too loud in the quiet house. When I opened the door, no one was there, just a package, plain brown paper, my name on it, written in looping cursive I didn't recognize, no return address. Inside, a single object, a candle, same size, same color, same wax, but no wick, just a smooth, unbroken surface. There was a note tucked beneath it, folded, torn at the edge, 3 words scrolled across it, bury this one, and beneath it, barely visible, don't let it remember you. I stared at the candle for a long time. It wasn't humming, it wasn't warm, it didn't feel alive, but somehow it still watched me. I could feel its presence like a shadow behind the eyes, passive, patient, like it knew it would be lit, eventually, whether I wanted to or not. I wrapped it in foil, sealed it in a tin box, walked deep into the woods behind the house, somewhere I hadn't gone in years. The trees welcomed me, no voices, no whispers, no symbols carved into bark, just wind and leaves, and the quiet crunch of earth underfoot. I buried it 6 feet down, under a moss-covered stone that looked vaguely like a sleeping face. Said nothing, walked away without looking back. That night I slept, really slept. No humming, no dreams, no flickering images, just darkness, soft and still. When I woke up, it was morning again, and this time, the light felt earned. I went back to the chapel, out of some need I couldn't explain. It was boarded up now, condemned, warning signs plastered across the door, rust on the handle, the smell of rot behind the walls, but I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I stood there for a while, listening. No sound, not even wind, just the memory of stillness. And that was okay. I whispered, thank you to whatever was still inside. Then I walked away. The next few weeks passed like a gentle dream. Classes, errands, ordinary things. No echoes in the mirror, no flickers of candlelight, no strange packages or messages scrawled in ash, just life. It was like I'd stepped out of a fever and into something stable, like the ritual had finished with me. Or maybe I'd finally finished it. Maybe that's the real secret. It wasn't about breaking the curse, it was about remembering it, carrying it without lighting it again. But some nights, just a few, I still feel it. When the house is too quiet, when the shadows stretch too long, when I walk past a mirror and catch a glimpse that's a fraction of a second too late. I remember the hum, the flame, the face that looked just like mine and said, you remembered too much. And I wonder, did I, or not enough? It started again with a smell, subtle, just on the edge of awareness, a faint curl of burnt wax, caught in the folds of my hoodie as I passed under a street lamp one quiet evening. It might have been nothing, a neighbor burning candles, a memory drifting loose from sleep. But I stopped walking because the scent was behind me and I hadn't passed anyone for blocks. I turned around, empty street, pale yellow light, no wind, no sounds, but the smell. It thickened, clung, like the space I'd just walked through hadn't let go of me. A tiny dread bloomed under my ribs. I told myself I was being paranoid. Old habits, lingering echoes, nothing real. So I kept walking, faster. When I got home, the front door was unlocked, just barely. One click off, not open, not broken, just waiting. I stood on the porch, listening, nothing. Then I stepped inside. Everything looked untouched, but on the hallway floor, right where the welcome mat should have been, lay a single item, a burnt-out match. I didn't scream, didn't panic, just knelt beside it, picked it up, and held it in my palm. No heat, no smoke, just that unmistakable residue. This had been lit, recently. I should have checked the rooms. I should have turned on all the lights, called someone, run. Instead, I went to my bedroom, and there, on my desk, 3 unlit candles, new, identical. I stood for a long time in that doorway, watching them, daring them to move, to hum, to flicker. They didn't, not yet, but they were back. Some part of me had relit them, whether I meant to or not. I didn't touch them that night. I turned away, curled under the covers, forced my eyes shut, told myself it was over, told myself I had a choice now. But dreams aren't built on choices, they're built on memory, and mine had been burned into the wax. In the dream, I was in the white room again. No corners, no door, just the mirror. No reflection this time, just flame, rising higher, slower, twisting into shapes, fingers, eyes, mouths that didn't speak, but still whispered. You kept most of it, they said, but you buried the rest. It doesn't like to be forgotten. I woke up gasping. Morning light painted golden squares on the floor. For a moment everything felt okay, until I looked at the desk. One candle had moved, just a few inches to the left, still unlit, still watching, and now, it was humming. Not loud, not urgent, just a soft vibration in the air, like distant chanting underwater, the kind of sound you could ignore if you tried hard enough. But the longer I listened, the more I recognized the melody. Not words, not music, a rhythm, 3 parts, Sleep. Wake. Forget. The loop, still spinning, still turning beneath everything I thought I'd escaped. I went to the backyard, dug up the tin box under the moss-covered stone, opened it. The wickless candle inside was gone. In its place, a matchbox. One match left, charred on the tip, but never struck. There was a note scrawled on the inside flap. "We found you. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't turn my back to the candles. Didn't blink too long. I sat with them in the dark, waiting. Eventually, I heard footsteps in the hallway, not approaching, just pacing, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I opened the door. Nothing there, just ash on the floor. 3 sets of footprints, all facing my room, all stopped at the threshold. They hadn't come in, not yet, but the air buzzed like they would, soon, and the smell, stronger now, not just wax, but smoke, like something had already caught fire, and I was the only one who hadn't noticed. I didn't remember falling asleep, but I woke up to candlelight, soft, swaying, gentle, too close. All 3 candles were burning now, perfectly still, lined up at the foot of my bed. Their flames weren't yellow, or blue, or white. They were colorless, like a gap in reality. A hole punched through the world, where fire should be. I sat up slowly. No sound, no breath, no hum, just that light, pale and wrong. I reached for the switch on the lamp beside me. It flicked, but nothing changed. The bulb stayed dark, the candlelight deepened, not brighter, closer, like it was folding the room in on itself. Walls creeping in, shadows stretching toward me with long, patient fingers. I whispered, "No," and something whispered back, "Yes." The mirror across the room clouded over, not with steam, not with dust, with movement. Inside it, a figure walked slowly toward the glass. Not me, but not a stranger either. I knew the way it carried its shoulders, the twitch of its hands, the slight lean to the left, like it favored a limp. It had never quite healed. It stopped a breath away from the mirror's surface, tilted its head, and smiled. Then it raised a finger, pressed it to the other side of the glass. A small crack formed, thin and high, like a violin string snapping under tension. I stood frozen. It was inside, or I was. I didn't know which anymore. The candle flames bent toward it, all 3, leaning like flowers chasing sunlight. Except, this light didn't warm. It remembered. The hum returned, but not soft this time. Not gentle. It pressed into my chest, like a heartbeat that didn't belong to me. Out of sync, out of place. The room pulsed with it, lights twitching in the corners of my vision, furniture warping in and out of shape, the world spinning on a turntable I couldn't step off of. And then I realized it wasn't just my room anymore. I was back in the chapel, and I hadn't moved. Everything was made of memory. The bed, the floor, the smell of dust and wax, all of it was a set, reconstructed from fragments of my mind. And now it was collapsing, folding back in, breaking apart. The candles flickered violently. One by one they extinguished themselves, not with smoke, with silence, the kind that fills your head and makes your thoughts feel like echoes. The mirror shattered, but not outward, inward, sucked into itself, shards spinning into a void I couldn't see the bottom of, and through the hole it left behind, I saw them, all of me, all the versions, trapped in their own loops, some pacing in endless hallways, others curled up in chapel pews, whispering forgotten prayers, one sitting completely still, eyes wide, mouth sewn shut, with wax dripping slowly down his arms, like melted armor. They weren't moving anymore. They were waiting for me to decide. The matchbox appeared in my hand. I didn't remember picking it up, but there it was, the same one from the tin box, Still only one match left, still unstruck, still watching. There was no note this time, just that sense, deep in my spine, that this was it, the real ritual, the real choice. Light it, or leave it. If I struck it, I knew something would change. Maybe everything, maybe nothing. But if I didn't, I would carry this moment forever, like a bruise I couldn't see, but always felt. I looked into the dark, where the mirror had been. The figures leaned closer, eyes glowing faintly. One of them whispered, "You came so far." Another, "But not far enough." And then a third, barely audible, or maybe exactly far enough. I struck the match. The head flared, white and hot, flooding the room with impossible light. Not warmth, not heat, clarity. For the first time, I saw all of them clearly. Me echoes, variants, failures, not broken, not lost, just unfinished. The flame didn't catch on a candle, it caught on me, and the world held its breath. The flame didn't burn. It revealed, it threaded through me, not as fire, but as memory, stringing together every version I'd ever been, a tapestry of mistakes and near misses, of whispered names and unfinished rituals, of candles lit with hope and snuffed out with fear. I didn't collapse. I didn't scream. I watched, because for the first time, I understood this wasn't punishment. It was inheritance. The chapel faded. The walls peeled back like old wallpaper underneath my room again. Normal, plain, quiet. The match had gone cold between my fingers, but the feeling remained, like something soft had nested just beneath my ribs. I opened the drawer of my desk. No candles, no matches, no notes, just a single scrap of paper, yellowed with age, written in my own handwriting. "You finished it. Now sleep." It should have been a relief. It was, mostly, but you don't just walk away from something like this. You carry it. The weight of what you've seen, the memory of what almost took you, the faintest scent of smoke when the wind shifts, just right. It never leaves. It just settles. The next morning, I went back to the chapel. I don't know why. Closure, maybe. Finality. The structure was still condemned, wrapped in chain link fencing and yellow tape, but the boards across the front door had fallen off, not broken, just removed, carefully, as if someone or something had been let out, not in. Inside, the dust had settled. The altar was gone. The circle, faded, but not erased, just dormant, like a scar that had stopped hurting, but never quite healed. I walked to the center, sat down, closed my eyes. No voices, no humming, just my own breath, slow and steady, echoing against stone. For the first time, I didn't feel watched. I felt seen, and that was enough. When I got home, the candles were still gone. I checked every drawer, every corner, even beneath the floorboards. Nothing. The mirror reflected only me. The lights worked. The fridge had food. My phone buzzed with messages again. Mundane, boring, beautiful. I went to sleep that night, with the window cracked open, letting the breeze curl around my sheets. And when I dreamed of nothing. A quiet field, a sky without stars, my feet in the grass, soft and damp with dew, no shadows, no fire, just stillness. I don't know if the ritual is truly over. I don't know if they're still watching from the other side of the mirror, or if the humming will ever return. But I do know this. The match is gone. The wax has cooled. And the version of me that began all this, the scared kid with shaky hands and too many questions, he finally got what he wanted. Not answers, not power, just peace. So now, breathe with me for a moment. Let it all fade. Let the candlelight dissolve behind your eyes. Let the echoes dim until they're just dust floating in your thoughts. No more humming, no more ritual, just the slow rhythm of a world turning gently around you. Let your fingers relax. Let the story unwind itself, like threads loosening from a dream. You're safe here. You made it. And even if the night carries its secrets, not all of them are meant to be solved. Some are just meant to be survived. So close your eyes, if you haven't already. Let sleep take its time. I'll be here, in the quiet, in the calm, in the place, after the story ends.